Today's video is brought to you by Mengto's latest book, Design Plus Code. Now, if you've never heard of Mengto before, then him and his team have been working on their latest book for iOS 11, and it just is fantastic. But this book is way more than just a book. Right now you can pre-order it for $50, and this is what it comes with. There's 3 chapters with 40 sections in total, and there's over 44 hours of video lessons as well. You also have exercises that'll keep your brain fresh as you're reading the book. And also, just coming with this book, you get 20% off of Sketch, you get 6 months free of InVision, 80% off of Angle, and 20% off of Framer. So if you want to learn from a pro on how to make an application just as beautiful as his, just go ahead, link will be in the description down below. But anyway, thanks again to Meng for sponsoring this video. I probably would have given it a shout out anyway. It just looks like a fantastic book. I've already read the first chapter, and so far so good. I'm ready to dive into the rest of it. Anyway, let's just go ahead and jump right into it. Hey guys, Jared here, and today we're going to be taking a look at how to make a parallax effect using a scroll view, a couple of views, and some labels. This is an effect that I used in my own application, and I think it just looks awesome, and hope you like it too. If you don't, then get out. But anyway, let's just go ahead and jump right into it.
My sense of humor is still in development.
Alright, so first things first, we're going to go ahead and open up the code for the X's. We're going to create a new Xcode project, and inside of here, we're going to go ahead and create a single view application. For the project name, go ahead, name it whatever you want. And then of course for your language here, I'm just going to set that to Swift. Alright, so here's our project. Now go ahead, I'm going to make this a bit bigger. Let's head into the main.storyboard right here. Usually I would do everything programmatically, but the only thing that we're setting up non-programmatically in here is just a scroll view. So I figure it's simple enough. Let's just put this inside of the main.storyboard. But the rest of what we're going to be doing is done programmatically. It has to be done that way. I mean, theoretically, you could create a bunch of views inside of your main.storyboard and plunk them into the scroll view, but that's a terrible idea. Don't do that. But with our view controller right here, I'm just going to go down here to my objects, and we're just going to head to the scroll view. And then we're just going to click and drag that right on there, and then take this out to all the edges. Then let's go ahead and add some constraints real quick. We're just going to say leading, trailing, top, and bottom space to safe area. And boom. So this is going to be the scroll view that we use to plunk in the labels and also the other views that are in there. Now let's go ahead and put some stuff in this scroll view. Now it's pretty simple. Let's go ahead and open up our assistant editor. We're going to go ahead, right click or control click and drag from this scroll view over to our viewcontroller.swift file, and then just give it a name. So this will be my scroll view. And now that we have our scroll view created, we don't need to set up any more constraints or anything. So let's just go ahead and add some views in there. Now for our views that are going to be added inside of our scroll view, I'm going to make some custom ones. Inside of my own application, I added collection views and made my own custom UI view, and I worked with that. But I think for this tutorial, let's just go ahead and add a custom UI view that's just going to hold an image view. It's pretty plain and simple. Alright, so in order to create this UI view, I'm going to head down here, let's create a class, and then for the name of our class, I'm going to call this my custom view. And then for our superclass, this will be of a UI view, like so. Now, technically, you could also just use a UI image view and plunk that inside of the scroll view, but I kind of wanted to show you specifically how to add a view, and then also how to add elements into that view if you want to add anything on later on. All right, so inside of here, let's go ahead and add our init. This will be of the frame. I'm going to go ahead and say super.init. We'll give it the frame that we provide it. And then, of course, it's going to ask us to put in this required initializer coder. So go ahead and add that in there as well. And then now let's go ahead and add our image view. So inside of here, I'm just going to go ahead and say let my image view colon UI image view equal open close curly brackets, and then at the end of these curly brackets, we're going to go ahead and add parentheses. Then inside of here, let's go ahead and say let image view equal a UI image view open close parentheses, and then we're going to go ahead and say return my image view. Now for those who are unfamiliar with this method here, it's basically just creating a UI image view. That's all we're trying to do here. But what this allows you to do is now I can go inside of here and say image view dot translates auto resizing and mask into constraints, and I can set that equal to false. Now I can do that right inside of the object rather than actually worry about if it's in the init or any other place. This gets very helpful, especially later on if you have many objects inside of this view. So if you've never used this method, start using it because it's very helpful. I just started recently using it and it's been awesome. And also another thing that I like doing in here is I'm going to say image view dot background color will be equal to a UI color dot blue. I'm just going to go ahead and do that because when we do add our image view, I want to make sure that it is actually inside of the view properly. So now that we have this object, let's go ahead and add it into the view. So we're just going to say self.add subview, and we're going to add the image view. Then let's go ahead and set up the constraints. So I'm going to say image view.leftAnchor.constraint, and I'll set this equal to my self.leftAnchor. And then that's it. Now after this parenthesis here, I'm going to say is active, and I'll set that equal to true. Then we're also going to go down here and just do this for the left, top, bottom, and right. So meet me back here when you're done. All right, so there you have it. We have our left, right, top, and bottom anchors all applied to this. We also have translates auto-resizing mask into constraints and set that equal to false. That is a necessity with the method that we're using to set up constraints. But yeah, there we have it. Now we have this custom view. Now let's go ahead and add this into our scroll view. Now something else we want to do before we head into adding this into the scroll view is we need to have data. We need to have data to put inside of the custom view, but we also need data that will be read by the scroll view to let us know how many views need to be added. And also we need to have something that tells the label what its title is going to be. So let's go ahead and build a struct real quick. I'm going to go ahead and call this my scroll view data struct, like so. And then for our fields here, we want two things, the image and a label that applies to that view. So I'm going to go ahead and say let my title :string, and then we're going to set this as an optional. And then I'm also going to say let my image :UI image, and then set that as an optional as well. Then down here inside of our view controller, we can now go ahead and say let my scroll view data equal an array of my scroll view data structure. Then go ahead and put the parentheses right outside of these brackets right here. So what this just did is we created an array that will hold multiple titles and images. So let's go ahead and add that data into our project now. So I'm going to go ahead and say my scroll view data will be equal to, and then I'll set this equal to an array. We'll put this as my scroll view data struct dot init, and then we're going to go ahead and put in the title and image. For my title here, I'm just going to go ahead and say first. And then for our image here, let's go over here to our assets.xc assets, and let's just drag in a couple of images that I have laying around. So these are just screenshots from my videos. If you haven't seen my Dev Mountain series, I was really proud of those videos. So check them out, because if you're wondering what a bootcamp life is all about, I think it's just, it was a fun way to show it off a little bit. All right, so now for our image, I'm going to go ahead and type in image literal, and let's go ahead and pick an image. Let's click the second one here. Let's go ahead and hit comma, and then we're going to put in another image. So this one's going to be my other image. And then I'll give this the title of second. And then right after this comma, I just like to hit enter because it's much more readable this way. But you have first, second, and then you also have the corresponding images to go along with that. And for some reason I said it was a let variable up here. Change that to var, and that should fix that error that's going on right now. Because lets can't change and vars do. All right, so now that we have this data, let's go ahead and say for my data in my scroll view data, like so. We're just going to go ahead and take this data and apply it to a view. So first off, we need to create the view that we're going to be adding into our scroll view. So I'm going to go ahead and say let view equal a custom view, open parentheses, give it the frame, and for our frame here, go ahead and type in cgrect, open parentheses, and then for our x, y, width, and height. For our x and y values, we need to figure this out in just a minute. There's a few things that need to happen before we can really talk about this. But for our width and our height, let's go ahead and set this equal to my self.scrollView.frame.width. And then that's going to set the width of my view directly to the size of a scroll view. And we'll play around with this number in a little bit, but I kind of want to keep it that way just to show you what it's like. Then for our height here, I'm going to go ahead and set this equal to my self.scrollView.frame.height. And then again, we'll play around with this number in just a little bit as well. But for now, I think we're good. Now for our x and y values here, what we need to do is create another variable right above this for statement and say var I will be equal to 0. Then inside of my for data in scroll view data, then after everything has happened, we want to go ahead and say I plus equals 1. So this, just make sure this stays at the bottom, because this I variable is very important in terms of positioning. So that's exactly why we go back here to our x value. So for our x variable here, I'm just going to go ahead and set this equal to myself.scrollView.frame.width, and then we're going to multiply this by the cg float of I. And this is what allows it to actually scroll. So it's very important that you do this. Now for our Y value here, I'm just going to keep this at 0 at the moment, but again, we'll play around with this because we need to make space for that label in a minute. But for now, we have this view. Now let's go ahead and add it into our scroll view. So I'm going to go ahead and say self.scrollView dot add subview, in which we're going to add the view. Now something else to note here is although we have this view being added, the scroll view doesn't automatically make it so you can scroll directly to it. We also need to affect the content size of the scroll view. So with that, we need to go back up here, and I'm going to say scroll view dot content size dot width will be equal to, and we're going to set this equal to myself dot scroll view dot frame dot width. And then we're going to multiply that by how many things are inside of my scroll view data. So I'm going to say scroll view data dot count. And then here it says we can't do a CG float with an int. That's why we did this originally up here. We said CG float I. So up here we need to do the same, CG float, and then we're going to put this as scroll view data dot count. So that just wraps it around a CG float so that it's able to be multiplied. Just so we get a feel for how things are right now, let's go ahead and build and run this real quick, and let's see what's up. All right, so let me show you what's going on here. So we have actually successfully done that. We have a scroll view that holds 2 views. We actually can see this slightly. We have an image view that just has a plain old blue background. But if you look down at the bottom of it, you can see that there is in fact enough room to scroll that holds 2 views. So that just shows us that we're there. But of course, let's make that a little bit more visible. So this is where we're going to play around with the width a little bit. So for our X value, I'm going to go ahead and set this equal to 10 plus. And then let's wrap this all around in parentheses just so that we can get a clear separation of things. So what this is going to do is push it to the right of the left border just by 10 pixels. Now we also need to compensate with this with the width and make it 10 pixels on this side as well. So all in all, those pixels plus those pixels is 20 pixels. So we need to go ahead and subtract the width by 20 pixels. So this is where we say self.scrollView.frame.width, and let's subtract 20. Then for our height here, we'll keep this the same for now, but let's go ahead and build and run this again, and let's see what changes we've made. I set a broom, sweep a broom. I set a broom, a sweep a mop, a sweep a mop, a sweep a broom. So now you should be able to see that we have 10 pixels on both sides, and that's just a small little border so that you have a separation between the views. Now we'll still figure out the height of this in just a minute, but we have this data that we want to put inside of that image view. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to go ahead and say view.imageview.image will be equal to, and I'm just going to say data.image. And that's going to go ahead and add that image right onto that image view there. It's as simple as that. Build and run that, and you should be able to see that image applied to that view. Now, it looks absolutely terrible, and I don't even want to show you what it looks like, so let's go ahead and fix how this looks right now. So I'm going to go ahead and say image view. Let's go down here. I'm going to say image view dot content mode, and we're going to set this equal to scale aspect fit, like so. And then I also want to get rid of this UI color.blue and set this equal to a dark gray, and then build and run that. These are all just personal preferences, but just showing you how this would all work. So now that you have those images in a pretty way being applied to your UI view. Now, let's go ahead and start working on that label and making that parallax. So the whole concept of this is really simple. Let's go ahead and add a label real quick. So I'm going to go ahead and say let my label equal a UI label, open parentheses, and then let's go ahead and set the frame of this to a cgrect.init, in which we're going to go ahead and find this one down here that has the origin and the size. So for our origin here, this is going to be the center point of our UI label. We want to go ahead and put in a cg point.init, in which we'll give it an x value of my view.center.x. And then for our y value, I do not want to directly put this at the top of the scene. I want there to be some gap, so I'm going to go ahead and put this as 10. And then for our size here, actually I'm actually going to set this at 20, and then we also need to go back to our view and compensate for that. But also for the size here, I'm going to go ahead and set this equal to cg size.init, in which we'll go ahead and give this the width of 0. But for the height, let's go ahead and set this equal to 40. So now we have this, that our label is 40 and our y is 20. So now we have it that the height is 20 and it's down 20 pixels from the top of the scroll view. So in order to compensate for all of this, let's go up here to the y value up here, and we're going to set this equal to 80. So that's going to put it 20 pixels beneath the label. This will all make real sense once you actually put this into This will all make a lot of sense once we actually put this into practice. So now let's go ahead and say self.scrollView.add subview, in which we're going to go ahead and add our label. Then for our label.text here, I'm going to go ahead and set this equal to my data.title. Then also for our label.font, I'm going to set this equal to a UI font.bold system size of font size, and then we'll set this equal to 20. We'll see how that looks, but we also want to say label.text color will be equal to a UI color dot, let's go ahead and put this as black. Now let's go ahead and build and run this, and let's see what we have. And then as you can remember, up here inside of my width, we set our width to 0. So what we need to do is call label.size2fit. And that's going to go ahead and resize the label. So I actually have some wrong thinking on how the origin works. So the origin is still the top left corner. So what we need to do is let's go ahead and set our x just to 0. And then up here, down here, we're going to say label.center.x. And then we'll set this equal to my view.center.x as well. Now let's go ahead and make it offset a little bit. So this is fairly simple. We need to work with that I variable. This is where all of this comes in handy. So we're going to go ahead and say if I is equal to 0, then we're going to do this. Else, we're going to do this. So if it's equal to 0, we just want it to be right above the view already. And then inside of our else statement here, I'm going to say label.center.x will be equal to my view.center.x. But we want to take that label and move it so it's showing just off to the right off of that first view. So in order to do this, and you can mess around with these numbers all you want, but this one is the best to me. We're just going to go ahead and say self.scrollView.frame.width divided by 2. Basically, that's just going to take half of the screen and subtract that with our label. And that should make it appear just right off to the right of our view. So let's go ahead and build and run that, and let's see what we have. All right, so as you can see, we now have first and second is just appearing right off to the right of the view, which is exactly how I wanted it to look. Now for this label, I did notice this like bold font system size is a little bit small. I'm going to change that to 30, and then that should be a little bit better. Personal preference again, but that's what I'm going to be doing. But now let's get into the fun part where we actually make this look like it's parallaxing through. So in order to do this, we need to figure out a way to control the scroll view. So of course we need to set a delegate for that scroll view. So this is very simple. You just go up here to the class, you hit comma, and we put this as a UI scroll view delegate. Then down here, we're also going to go down here and use one of their functions that are provided in that delegate called scroll view did scroll. And that's going to be the function that's going to do all the cool stuff. So first off, I want to go ahead and say if my scroll view is equal to my scroll view, then we're going to do this. Now, the reason I'm doing this is to show you that if you have multiple scroll views inside of your view, then you would want to make sure that you have this scroll view statement. Otherwise, this function will be called on any scroll value that you scroll on inside of that one view, and that's no bueno. Sorry, this is equal. Come on, learn the basics, Jared. Now, one question you might be asking is how are we going to access the views and labels that we put inside of this scroll view? Easy, we add tags. So I'm going to go up here to my view and I'm going to say view.tag will be equal to the value of I. And for our label down here, just to make this quick and simple, I'm going to also say label.tag will be equal to I plus 10. Now, if you have more than 10 views showing up, put that I plus 100 or something like that. If you have more than 100, follow suit. Anyway, that's going to allow you to access the labels and the views based on their tags. So I'm actually going to go up here real quick, and just so that we keep track of this, I'm going to say my tag value will be equal to 10. And then now we're going to say label.tag I plus, and we'll put this as my tag value, like so. So now inside of my scroll view here, I can go ahead and say for I in 0 ... less than, and then we're going to set this less than our scroll view data. And then we're going to go through our scroll view data. And of course, this is scroll view data.count. So basically, we're just going to go through this scroll view data. We have that I value, so it's going to go 0, 1, 2, 3, however many is inside of our scroll view data.count. So now we can use this I value to our advantage by just grabbing those views that are inside of our scroll view. So first off, we want to grab that label. So I'm going to go and set let my label equal, and we'll set this equal to my scroll view dot view with tag, and then we're going to grab, of course, the I plus the tag value, And then we're going to use that. So, and then it also doesn't know that this view we're grabbing is a UI label. It doesn't really matter, but why not? So we're just going to go ahead and say as a UI label. And that's just going to allow us to specify a bit further what that label is. And if you want to change like the font as it's going along, you can do that as well. Now also we need to get our scroll content offset. That's what I like to call it. But basically it's a little bit different than our scroll view offset. It's just with how big the scroll view is. This will make a lot more sense if we just do it. So I'm going to say let my scroll content offset equal my scroll view dot content offset, and then we're just going to say plus my self dot scroll view dot frame dot width. And also this should be my scroll content offset dot x, and this is not an equals, that's a plus. So that is what my scroll content offset is, and we need this because our first parallaxing label is on the right side of the screen rather than the left side. If it was on the left side, then you could easily just use scroll view dot content offset dot x, but because it's on the right, we need to have that width. Now this last part here, I'm just going to be spitting a bunch of math your way because it took me a long time to figure out all of the divisions and whatnot, but I'll try and explain it to the best of my abilities, but it even confuses me still. I know it works. So I'm going to go ahead and say var my view offset will be equal to, and this is also where we need to grab our view. So just like we grabbed our label up here, we need to say let our view equal my scroll view dot view with tag, and then this is just going to be I as, and then this is going to be a custom view, like so. Now we can start working with this view. So I'm going to go ahead and say view.center.x minus my scroll view.bounds.width divided by 4. Then we want to take all of this, wrap those in parentheses, and then we're going to say minus my scroll content offset. And this is where we're using this let variable that we created earlier. Now, going a little bit further, we're going to take this view offset and we're going to apply this to our label center. So I'm going to say label.center.x will be equal to scroll content offset minus, and then I'm going to say open close parentheses, in the which we'll set this to our scroll view dot bounds dot width. You could use frame or bounds, and then we're going to say divided by 4 minus our view offset. And then finally, we're going to take this part right here, just this minus part right here. We're going to wrap that in parentheses as well, and we're going to divide this by 2. And we're applying that to our label. Again, it's a lot of math. I had to figure all this out, and I can't recall everything, what everything means, but basically, this all works. That's all you really need to know. Generally tell what's going on here. We take the view.center.x. You can generally tell what's going on here. We just get the view offset, and we wanted to use that alongside our scroll content offset and apply that to our label and in a certain way. Let's go ahead and build and run this, and let's see what we have, because that equation right there should make this work. And then also one last thing before we build and run this is this scroll view did scroll is actually not going to be called right now. So what we need to do is go up here and say scroll view dot delegate will be equal to self. And once we get that, build and run that, and we should be able to see the changes made inside of our scroll view did scroll. Now mine actually crashed because what happened is the UI scroll view already has a tag of 0. That's the UI scroll view that we added inside of our main.storyboard. It already gave that the tag of 0, and therefore we need to find a way around this. So, and the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to go up here to my tag value. I'm going to say var my view tag value will be equal to 100, and then I'm going to, or will be equal to 10, and then for our tag value here, I'm going to set that equal to 100. Now, for our view tag value, we need to apply this to our view.tag, and we're going to set this equal to view.tag equals I plus my view tag value. So basically, we did exactly what we did with our label. We're just doing it now for our view in a different way so that we can avoid our view already having the tag value of 0. And then just as we did up here with our view.tag, we need to go down here and say view.tag plus my view tag value as well. Now let's go ahead and build and run that, and that should solve our issue. Basically, our fix there was to make sure that custom view could never have the tag of 0, because that's the scroll views tag. But we have it. So it parallaxes. Woo! So that all that crazy math did work, but yeah, it looks awesome. Now also something I wanted to do just real quick is fix that height. So our height here, because we moved the Y value down, it's getting affected quite a bit. So with that Y value, we also want to just go ahead and set our height minus, and then what we're going to do, so right now we have the Y value of 80. So that's pushing down the view 80, and therefore we need to adjust the height accordingly. So what I want to do is have a 10 pixel barrier at the bottom there. So I'm just going to go ahead and say minus 90 to the height, and that's going to allow it that compensation so that there should be a 10 pixel barrier between the bottom of the view and the bottom of the screen. So let's go ahead and build and run that real quick, and let's make sure that works. And as you can see, it does. It adds that 10 pixel barrier at the bottom. That just makes it look a lot better. Also, because I know someone's going to ask, if this is built and ran and we update the constraints on this scroll view here, it should all run the same. Let's go ahead and update those constraint constants, build and run this, and let's see what we get. It all builds and runs the same and keeps the same barrier, so you can edit this UI scroll view all you want, and all of those Y variables and whatnot will still be applied to that scroll view in their proper way. All right, quick little side note. I want to add one little thing. If you want to learn how to parallax the image view inside of there, generally you're going to be using the same equation. In fact, I'll give you the challenge to do that. But if you're interested in a part 2 in which I show how to do this, let me know with a comment below or hit that like button. Anyway, back to past Jared. Anyway, that's it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that. If you do end up doing this, send a video to me on Twitter because I'd love to see it. Anyway, that's it. Be sure to subscribe for more, like this video if you did, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.